So I'm going to talk to you about innovation AI at BDO. So I'm Dan Francis. I'm head of innovation and digital products. I thought I won't spend too long on this, as other people's bios are never that interesting. But I guess my progression to work on new technologies and innovation digital was via a few different routes. I started life off as a project manager and program manager, worked for various companies, American Express. I worked for what was then a sort of Monzo startup in 2000, which was Nectar loyalty scheme, now owned by Sainsbury's. And then I've done senior innovation, digital, new technology roles, creating new businesses out of technology, basically for a number of different big companies. And I worked in smaller scale startups. So Location Sciences was a AIM listed, so a PLC company, but a small scale tech startup. And at BDO, my job is really to introduce new technologies into the business. So today is really around three things. One is ideas and the creative process around innovation, then productizing this, so turning stuff into actual commercial reality, so products and services that you can use. And then I'm going to focus on AI, artificial intelligence, and what we're doing around that at BDO, and also just give you some examples. So I'm going to try and make this, it's Friday afternoon, I'm going to try and make this as fun and as entertaining and as informative as possible. There will be time for questions, so do put the questions in the Q&A section on Zoom. I'm happy to take those afterwards, and put as many in there, as varied as you want. I'll try and answer everything that I can. Okay, so this is how how I see the creative process. Okay, this is how I think about it in my head when I'm starting a new idea or new project. It's never like this. This is kind of what it's like. Okay, it's lots of people running around for a long period of time, not knowing what they're doing, and then the sort of panic hits as you've got some kind of deadline or some kind of showcase, or you need to get a product or service live. So I thought we'd start with ideas. This is a quote I saw a few years ago now that really stuck with me, and maybe it will stick with one or two of you too. So the quote is, "A new idea is delicate. It can be killed by a sneer or a yawn, and it can be stabbed to death by a quip and worried to death by a frown on a right man's brow." This was written 2,000 years ago, so hence the slightly un-PC language in it. But it's stuck with me around large-scale innovation, particularly in corporate environments where ideas don't always go as planned and quite often live or die depending on how loud somebody is shouting. So a little bit of theory, and there won't be, don't worry, there won't be too much of this. But a little bit about the difference between ideas and innovation, because it's really important, because the two are different. Okay, ideas is the stuff that happens at 3 a.m. That keeps you awake at night or keeps you up at night. It's an imaginative process, as we know, but it doesn't really consume any resource. It doesn't really, if you're a company, it's not risky to have ideas. What is the complete flip side of this is introducing these ideas into a business. Into an ecosystem. Innovation is really creating value through change, through new ideas and new processes and new products. So it's a productive process. So you consume resources, i.e. people, and you increase risk. When you introduce change into an organization, you are increasing the risk profile of that organization. And professional services like BDO are pretty risk averse because they're regulated businesses. Okay, so ideas you can have lots of, they're free. Introducing those ideas as change, whether it's quantifiable value or intangibles like it's just a better place to work, takes resource, takes time, takes effort. Okay.
Dan, sorry,
Yeah.
interrupting you here. I don't think we can see your slides properly.
Ah, right. Well, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Okay. Thank you for interrupting. Okay. Well, let's go back then. Let's try sharing again.
There we go. Yeah, that looks right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So I won't go through those pieces again, but except to say these are, well, let me recap a little bit. The creative process, because that's the funny slide. Um, um, that's really what happens in reality. Okay, this is the technical project diagram of how projects run, ideas and innovation runs in actual reality. This is the quote, as I say, this is a 2,000-year-old quote, and it's very, very true now. This is the ideas versus innovation. So the fact that ideas are free, innovation is a productive piece, takes resource and needs to consume things. So and really, and thank you for stopping me, because this would be a particularly painful presentation for you guys if you weren't able to see these. So really, taking that one step further and going from ideas into actual things that you can sell, services that you can offer. I thought it'd be good to see what else is available out there. So what inspiration, what other products, mainly in the consumer world, that people have think were good things to do. So there's a few examples here. These are okay, nothing to do with professional services or BDO, but LED slippers. These are things you can buy on Amazon. You can go out and buy these today. Surprisingly successful, but this just proves to me that there are different products for different audiences. Another one is piano doorbell, so you can personalize your entry to people's houses. Particular favorite of mine around novel products, pizza scissors. I think this is a good example of a niche product. Dogbrella is always a favorite of most audiences. This is something that I think gives you a good indication of who products are designed for. So if you're designing and going through innovation process and a product is the output of that process, then it's a good example to walk in your customer's shoes. So Dogbrella is a very good example of who is buying your product, okay? Because it's not the dog is the consumer of the product. The person standing there is the person with the purchasing power that makes the decision. So the Dogbrella is not designed for a dog. Portable toaster, good example of how to sell things, I think, based on images. This is actually an image I stole from a film, from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because the image there is much better than the actual product itself. Although this product does exist, you can get a portable toasting slicing knife. Okay. And one for the offices. This is one that we did for BDO for our London offices, because I often give this presentation internally. The anti-theft lunch bags. So this is something designed for obviously when you're back in the offices. So a little bit of fun, really, as this is designed really to indicate that there are different products for different audiences, and that there's never a bad idea in some of these. There's always somebody that's willing to buy these things. But I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about how technology is creating a whole new set of new products. And this is based on a couple of different things coming together. So you'll often hear about the rise of computing power. You'll all now be experts from the last few months in terms of exponential rise. Well, this is the exponential rise of computing power. Moore's law, if you've heard of that, is the doubling of computing power every 18 months, or actually the doubling of the transistor count, if you want to be specific. And what you'll see here is this kind of graph as it rises up, is where we are in sort of 2020, is that the computing power in your average console, PS5 or iPhone or whatever it might be, is roughly equivalent to that of a mouse brain. So that's not saying that your items are going to start to come alive like a mouse, but you can get the equivalent computing power in terms of processing speed and processing cost as well. But in 5 years' time, we're going to see that exponential rise to roughly the same as a human brain. And that's going to create a huge new slew of new opportunities and products that will fill those opportunities. And it will also give rise to new technology. So we put in there, for example, quantum computing is something that could potentially give you double exponential growth over the next few years, which would, again, be a completely different shift in what is happening. But if we combine computing power on one side with, for example, artificial intelligence on the other, then that can give kind of rise to whole new capabilities for technology and for digital products. So, for example, computing power, AI, and instant video recognition can give rise to, for example, the ability to be able to, let me just get this slide working, the ability for computers to be able to recognize human emotions in real time. So this gives you an example of a particular individual where a computer is going through and has learnt a range of emotions and is able to, just by looking at the video and understanding the context of those range of facial expressions and what's happening, is assign a pretty good an accurate score to the emotion that's going on at the moment. So you'll see this particular individual is largely angry and disgusted and afraid. Okay, there's a good one actually of Trump and Obama side by side, and you can see the difference between them. If we take the same capabilities and apply this, for example, to self-driving, you can then see how a car combined with computer vision, combined with LiDAR and a few other detectors, is able to make decisions in real time using its artificial intelligence algorithms. And here, for example, there's a car driving along. You can see the way it can recognize stationary objects in motion, and it can detect that there are two cyclists about to pull out in front of it, slow down and take the corrective action. And that's a really good example of AI in action that's making real-time decisions that affect us all. So talking about AI, is that there are a number of different types of AI available. So most of them exist now. So at the top, you've got kind of your basic AI reactive. These are tools that you're using all the time, things like Google Maps, and they're able to make decisions and react to inputs. Limited memory is where you're able, just like the car, is able to be able to learn and improve as it goes along, and that's where sort of majority of products focus at the moment. But you've got things like theory of mind. This is really where AI is able to understand whether something is an intelligent entity and be able to interact with it on that basis. You've got things like GPT-3, which has been in the press the last few months, which is effectively an open source AI engine, which allows people to be able to have conversations and give structure and meaning to decisions. And then things, obviously self-aware AI, which thankfully doesn't exist yet, which it's either going to be the end of mankind or the savior of mankind, depending on which film you watch. So different types of AI are important, and we're kind of going up through that journey at the moment. And I guess in terms of what AI is able to do, there's lots of different types. So one thing humans are really good at doing is pattern recognition. It evolves out of our hunter-gatherer instincts. We're able to look very, very quickly at things, spot patterns and trends and differences between things. Computers can now do this. This is a really good example of how a computer can now spot the difference between two things that otherwise would have looked very, very similar to an algorithm or to a program. A computer can now train itself to learn that there is a difference between I think a blueberry muffin and a chihuahua. And also it's just a really great slide. So I really like to put it in presentations and often think of a way to weave it in, because it always makes me smile on a Friday afternoon. So computers now know the differences between dogs and cakes, which is great. In fact, there's some more slides like this. You've got dogs and chicken, always a good one. And I managed to find another one the other day, so I put it in anyway. So dogs and towels. So there you go. Computers can learn the difference between these things. And AI is important because of that example that we saw there around the car learning that the bicycle is about to put out. Because these things are reality now. You can go and buy these products. You can go and drive these products. And if you're in if you're in a self-driving car, you want to know that it's able to understand and interpret these decisions. These signs, for example, give you a good indication of some of the I guess edge decisions that computers need to make on our behalf. So speed limit 60, minimum 40. How does the computer know which is which? How does it know that small cars versus big cars can go in certain directions? How do you build a product that works in all of these different places and all these across the world with all the different variations of signs? I get confused when I go to different countries around street signs and signs. How does a computer learn these things? So it's doing that through the artificial intelligence. And it's not just things like self-driving cars, it's a whole new category of products. This is from China. These are not fireworks, these are drones, and it's using AI to maintain the flight patterns, variations in wind and speed and other pieces, then allow the drones automatically to form patterns and change color. They are controlled centrally, but they're flying autonomously and able to do this. So a very good example of technology replacing previous technology that's been around. I won't go through this example too much in detail, but this will allow basically
an app called Otter. Basically, it takes a live transcript of your conversation as it's happening, but then later it has some artificial intelligence to make it cleaner and easier to use. Is this something that you think you would use?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm a reporter, so I do a lot.
So Otter AI is a really good example. It's a free product that allows you to transcribe everything that's going on, and it just works. You just switch it on. Some of you in the audience may have used it. It's a good example of stuff that just works. But the technology behind allows it to recognize different voices and assign, for example, roles in the transcript to different people. It takes a huge amount of processing power and a huge amount of AI technology to be able to do that. Something humans find very, very easy to do. But now computers can surpass the human transcription. And again, there's any number of different categories. This one I like because it's effectively replicating what humans do. This is a neural implant that allows the signals from a human brain to be able to translate it into movement and the prosthetic limb. So this gives this particular individual the opportunity then to be able to move an arm in much the same way that he normally would be able to move his previous arm, and it is effectively learning those electrical signals, and that's just mimicking exactly how the human brain and muscles and nerves learn to do their own. And yeah, we talk a lot about, and science fiction has promised, as many things in the past, the robots are coming. What we got really was software. And at BDO, we're using lots of different software technologies to be able to progress what we're doing in professional services, what we're doing in tax, audit, and advisory areas. And we work with, for example, with Microsoft. Rainbird AI is a technology company, a startup that we've worked with for the last couple of years. Microsoft are a global partner of BDO. We work with them on a strategic basis to implant Microsoft technologies into BDO products and services. So, and the robots are here in other ways. So software at BDO also translates to software and other endpoints in our homes. A lot of you may have the robot vacuum cleaners. These learn where to go, where not to go. These are supplanting or surpassing low-value tasks, and that's what we see mimicked in professional services, is that the low-value monotonous tasks are now being automated either through technology or through a combination of technology and other parts. So we see, your thermostat can learn the temperature whether you're home and away, and we see these computing endpoints moving into the home and into the business. These are effectively new AI endpoints in the world, and now billions of them are available. So we kind of think that everything's getting automated, everything is smart. This one I like, just in case there's a point where it's not worth automating, making everything smart and AI capable. So the rise, I guess, of AI and technology into business, into your personal life, does give rise to some considerations. And at BDO, we are looking very, very carefully at how we implement some of these products and new products and services. And there's sort of three main strands around how you should be thinking about how these interact with your customers and with your staff. One is that you need to be transparent about what you're using, when you're using it, and how you're using it. So we tell people when we're making a machine decision. You'll see that in insurance claims or insurance risk decisions. You'll see your claim may be handled by an autonomous computing program or algorithm, and we do the same. We ensure that what we're doing is human-led, so effectively we are implementing human rules and human decisions into what we're doing. We're not just letting the code run away with itself. And very important for us as a regulated business that things are explainable, is if you arrive at a particular decision using particular data, using a machine-trained algorithm, that you're able to explain how you made that decision and keep a record of that decision. And here there's a good example. I'll let this video play for 30 seconds or so. You can just have a look at how other people are implementing this.
Teachers at this primary school in China know exactly when someone isn't paying attention. These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like. Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. These gadgets have alarmed China.
So I will pause it there. I think that's a good indication of particularly, I think, in the UK and maybe for other territories where we might think that goes too far, but different countries think in different ways and use technology to implement different things. So one final thing is on the ethical AI considerations. I'll just play this quick example and we'll have, open it up.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
Jordan Peele created this fake video of President Obama to demonstrate how easy it is to put words in someone else's mouth.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
Not everyone bought it, but the technology behind such frauds is rapidly improving, even as worries increase about their potential for harm.
So again, a good example, I think, of how things can be given as an example of what can go wrong and what can go right. So I will finish just on a note and a kind of, if you think about the big picture around technology, is technology, AI being the latest incarnation, is really designed to extend and augment our mind. And the example I often give is around, say, mapping. Human beings evolved to be able to create, as a hunter-gatherer and then a farmer and then a civilized society. We created maps in our mind to be able to move and navigate and survive by. We then started writing those maps down, printing them, distributing them, and eventually they became A to Z's and books a few years ago, and now Google Maps is what everybody uses, all the equivalents. But they are not effectively, they are effectively replacing a task that we've now outsourced to technology. But we don't think about them replacing what we do. We effectively think them as being augmenting our brain power and really extending our cognitive tools. So that theory of extended mind extends to lots of different types of technologies. We saw the example around the artificial arm, prosthetic arm, being an extension really of the human body. And that technology and the products and services that professional services are offering are really now extensions of those services rather than replacing the people. They are extending and augmenting the people. So I end on that kind of grand note, in that technology is not here to replace us, but to make us better and extend our capabilities. And I will finish on that, and I will open it to any questions that you may have.
I think we've got a lot of questions in the chat, Dan.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a look at those.
Perfect. Thank you.
So just give me a minute, everyone. I'll have a quick look. So a question, so COVID-19 affected his area of business? Not really. It's certainly affected how we do business. For some obvious obvious reasons. We're not able to open offices in certain areas, particularly the UK. Internationally, I think BDO has just announced its results. Our results are up. We have, I think, about a 7% increase in income over the last period. Now, clearly, that involves a majority of the COVID-19 period in the UK and other areas of the globe. We do see some areas that are particularly busy. BDO is a people-led business. Yeah, ideas, people, trust is effectively our strap line, and is very much runs through what we do. So when our clients need us to help them, that's effectively we're doing more for them at the moment, and that generally translates to business being good for us. Now there are areas that will dip as people either pause projects or activity. But there are other areas that are generally up. So we find actually we're able to help clients at the moment in ways that we probably couldn't imagine 7 or 8 months ago. So hopefully that answers that question. How much AI is involved in the early careers program? I don't know at the moment. I'll defer that answer to others.
Do you want me to answer that one, Dan?
Yeah, please.
It's not. Short and sweet.
There you go. Pretty much. We don't do any AI reviewing of CVs or some of these other things that we hear, which is great. So how has BDO adapted to AI advancement, especially during the pandemic? We have launched our first AI-powered digital tools. So you have to watch more in the press for that. But we are working on that actively at the moment, and looking at how we can effectively scale our people in a digital way. So how we can put digital products onto our website, into apps that allow people to access quick decisions around, say, tax, where they don't necessarily need a person to be able to make a decision on their behalf. What stage is BDO incorporating AI into audit at the moment? And is it a matter of making the auditor's role easier or replacing some of the repetitive roles like substantive testing? Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're able to do is move away from sampling to 100% audits. So based on the ability for, at least for AI and some elements of AI, to be able to do some level of sort of precursive analysis of, say, general ledger, purchase ledger type transactions, and that frees up the person then to look at the exceptions to that. That's how it's been looked at the moment. Let me just read this one. Yeah, I mean, there's a comment around AI replacing the human touch or not. Example, in office, you physically meet colleagues. Do you see this element of human interaction being fulfilled by AI? Well, no. So as I said earlier, I'll probably reiterate it. BDO is made up of nearly 6,000 people, and that bit won't go away, because that's essentially the essence of the firm. What we do see is I guess the repetitive actions being taken away from individuals, and for people be able to be freed up, be able to do more human touch. So we have a shared service center as part of BDO that automates some of the processes, and effectively what we're looking at doing is making sure that those people are doing the high value tasks that people should be doing, and they're not moving data from one column to another column, or verifying whether an invoice has a particular value in it. That's not what our people want to be doing. Do you think the UK and the Western world would follow in China and determination to increase AI? I think you'll see AI embedded into many different products, whether you see it or not. That's why I give the examples around some of the home automation pieces. Your thermostat learns whether it needs to heat the house to a certain temperature, whether you're here, there, or it's cold outside or hot outside, or whether you're moving around. Those are things we don't really think about as being necessarily AI. We just think about them being smart, or just a little bit better than a dumb thermostat or the robot vacuum cleaner. And I think we'll see that increasingly that AI is just built as a layer into lots of different things, and it just vanishes. And often technology is wide scale, is adopted in wide scale manner when we just don't think about it, and it disappears. And how much exposure BDO has to AI and how much integrated into the company's activities and culture. I mean, increasingly so. It's like all technologies, we start off small and we build these things up, often in layers. So we're often using and consuming products internally with BDO that run on AI. Microsoft Office has AI components in it. We analyze our calendars at BDO to see where we're having productive time, where we're not having productive time, and autofill particular areas of calendar for particular tasks. That's AI generated, but that's a product we consume from Microsoft. That's not something we developed. I think the real thing that we need to do is be able to encapsulate our people into more AI products and services that allow BDO to be able to scale and allow people to be able to interact with our clients more. Do you think we're on the way to overly invasive technology rather than intelligent technology? I think that comes back to the dogbrella example. So what is the right product? What's the right technology to use in the right situation? It's about fit of purpose, not just using technology for technology's sake. So I think that a lot of our clients, our customers, sort of fall into sort of three camps, if you like, and we're dealing with a wide spectrum of different people, from entrepreneurs and startups all the way to high net worth individuals and large PLC companies. So you can't put people into buckets, but you can generally analyze how BDO interacts with our customers and our potential new customers, and it's in three camps. Yeah, you've got people that just want to deal with other people. They don't want to deal with a system or a process. They want to log into somewhere. They want to upload a document. They want to talk to somebody, and they want to talk to somebody face to face. And you've got people that value human interaction, but like what technology allows them to do. So, for example, paying an invoice doesn't need somebody to write a check, mail it in, have somebody stamp it and pay it into a bank account. Just want to pay online, put your company credit and debit card in, or the auto bills. But when it comes to talking around tax strategy for your company, you want a conversation with a person. So that mixed bit is the middle pillar. And you've got people who don't want to engage with people. They would rather talk via chat or digital servicing or via digital layer and actively avoid talking to other people, even though they want to consume products and services from a company. So those are the three parts, and we try and cater for all. And the question around grads involved in products using AI and the evolution of AI, I think it's the same thing. Is absolutely, we want people that are digitally native, that have grown up with technology and the internet, and the way that opportunities present themselves because of that. So I would say that the majority of our new projects that are instigated by either by grads or early in career people around BDO are coming through because of that exposure to new technology. And I would see the ideal tax accountants or auditors of the future as being part technology experts and part accountants. What are the major partnerships that BDO has in the technology sector, AI cloud? Well, we are a partner with Microsoft. We are a top 40 customer of Microsoft globally, believe it or not. But we are heavily wedded to Microsoft technologies, not exclusively, but some of our core products are co-developed with Microsoft. And we have a partnership and actively work with them to implement their technologies. We also work with other products as and where we need to. We have a partnership with Rainbird AI, which is a London and Norwich-based AI company. You can have a look at them. How are we doing for time? We all okay? Keep going.
20 minutes left, all good.
Can AI become more in use in business in the future due to COVID compared to before the pandemic? I think I probably answered this one in that, yes, we are looking to offer more services digitally. So these low value decision making pieces that are often data driven, we are looking to digitize so that then people have room to have a conversation around strategy, and we have all the prerequisite information and decisions made already. So that's absolutely has been accelerated by COVID and by remote working in particular. I don't know the answer to AI not included in earning careers, but I think the question was really around whether it was used in the program to either make decisions or run it. I guess it might be in the future. It's not for me to answer. Let me just read the extras. I'll just pick out the last couple because I need some time for further time for the rest of the agenda. Future of work, AI is accelerating immensely based on experience. Limit creativity of humans by relying on AI. I think if you go back to the extended mind, the theory of the extended mind, no. Technology has been in existence for tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. AI is just the latest incarnation. There'll be something next decade or in 100 years or 200 years. We'll still be human beings. We'll still have technology. It'll be different technology. Okay, we moved from fire to farming to mechanical age, iron age, and others, all the way through to industrial age, to printing press was the internet of 400 years ago, to electricity, to automation, and the rest. This is the door. This is the information age and AI age. This is the actually fourth industrial revolution. If you read the different theories, there'll be a fifth and a sixth and a seventh, assuming Skynet doesn't get us all. Is it risky being too reliant on AI? Yes, it is. So the example around self-driving car is a good example. There's a very good example around Tesla's effectively have a phantom braking problem. They're seeing an object in a road that doesn't exist. So it might be a shadow or a puddle. And in particular countries, it's a problem. So if you're doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway and you suddenly brake to 30 miles an hour, that is a problem. And that is being too reliant on AI, not being trained for all situations. And what you need to remember is there needs to be controls around AI. Go back to those three pillars around ethical AI. Those are the guidance that you give to people, humans in control, and being able to augment some of those decisions with human decisions. And then how does BDO use technology to keep or accelerate relationships with their clients during COVID? Well, we've overnight gone to remote working for over 6,000 people. And when I say overnight, literally overnight. So when the government announced the lockdown in March, that was really around that made sure that we were going to move to laptops, to remote working, to Microsoft Teams, and a bunch of other technologies overnight. So that all worked very well for us, but that obviously has its limitations around what we can do, what we can't do. And I think that human touch still requires us to have some kind of physical relationship and contact. So I think it is able to accelerate relationships because we can meet more people more quickly, more remotely in different places. So it accelerates in that way, but you lose a little bit of the human touch when you do that. I think that is most of them. So I will hand over and stop there. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Dan. I'll do a quick brief intro to the EIC programs as well then. I know you're all here to hear about the future of work, but I'll just take a few minutes to run through this with you as well. Happy to then answer any questions you might have on the EIC process. I'm assuming everything's okay with my slides, but if they're not, just please let me know. So BDO, we're the 5th largest accountancy firm globally and in the UK, if you look at revenue. And this has been enabled partly by our strategic framework. And I wanted to show you this because we've been talking about the future workplace. We've been talking about sort of AI technology and how it can have an impact on the way that people work. And I just wanted to show you this because our strategic framework build sets out the 5 things that we are focusing on as a company. The D is digital mindset. So doing things differently to drive value, deliver efficiency, and promote innovation. That's where AI, the technology, comes in, and it forms a key part of what we do as a business as well. The 4 streams that we recruit into are advisory, audit and assurance, tax, and business services and outsourcing. We take graduates in all of these. You apply when you're in your final year or beyond at university, and you come on to join us for a 3-year graduate scheme. You get to do a professional qualification. You get to work with us, and you also, in most instances, get a level 7 apprenticeship, so master's equivalent qualification there. At the end of which, we obviously keep you on and keep developing you with us. Dan touched upon some of the skills that we are looking for in terms of what we call the advisors of the future. We know that when we recruit now, we're recruiting people to be with us for a long time. Many of our partners and senior leaders started off working for BDO straight out of school or university, and that's a trend that we want to keep going with as well, which means that when we're recruiting now, we need to look at what kind of skills is it you would need if you were with us in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And having a digital mindset is key there. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have hard technical coding skills to become an auditor or a tax advisor. As Dan said, it's more about being able to both work with clients and being comfortable working with technology. So what we're looking for is an openness to embrace change when it comes to digital innovation, and being able to work with that. For example, AI can help sort of get rid of a lot of those manual processes that would traditionally have been a large part of what we do on an audit or as a tax advisor around sort of data collation and data entry. A lot of that has been automated and will probably be automated more in the future. What we're looking for there is a graduate who can come in, be comfortable with that, take on board the information that's been given to them by those tools, and explain that to their client. For example, as a tax advisor, you're not crunching the numbers as much. You're more understanding what those numbers mean and explaining it to the client. We also had some questions around the application process, and this is what it looks like now. It's a simple 3-step process. So online application form, online test, and virtual assessment center. We got asked about AI. We don't use AI to look through CVs or anything like that, mostly because we don't necessarily ask for CVs and we don't screen CVs. So what we did before we started this recruitment season was that we did some research into our old recruitment process and looked at what is it that actually helps us assess for potential, and how can we get rid of everything else. So the 3-step process is now everything that allows us to assess for the strengths that we're looking for and for the potential that we would need in anyone joining us on an early in career program. So the online application form is purely your contact details and your academic scores, you need to have 4 or better in GCSE English or Maths or international equivalent if you're like me and did your schooling abroad. You need you need 3 C's or better at A level or equivalent, BTEC or internationally is fine, and then a 2-2 or better at university in your undergraduate degree. That's it. That's everything we look at on the online application form, in addition to, are you eligible to work in the UK? Tier 4 students, obviously okay, because we do sponsor Tier 2 visa conversions. You then move on to the online test and video interview. We use what's called a hypo-eye test. We're the first company to start using that. And what it does is that it allows you to showcase your potential. We know that the test allows you to relax more. It's more engaging, and it's more about giving you an authentic feeling of how a day in the life at BDO might look like. And it also allows us to see whether you have the high potential that we're looking for or not. Simple 45-minute test. It has some numerical elements, some scenarios in there as well, and obviously the video interview. However, it's more about you and your personality, you and your potential, rather than the scores themselves. So it's harder to practice for them, but it should also be easier to do the tests. Whenever you apply, we always recommend applying as soon as possible. We operate on a first come, first serve, and as soon as we have enough applications, we shut. So the sooner you apply, the better. At the moment, our graduate schemes are open. If you're looking for an internship, they will open in January. When you apply, you get the online test link. You then also have a practice test link that you can use. And I would recommend doing that, not necessarily because it allows you to practice and do a lot better when you do the actual test, but it will get you comfortable with the tests that we are using. If and when you pass the online tests, you get invited for a virtual assessment center. That's when you get to meet members of the team you've applied to, and you get to interact with them and showcase again the strengths and the potential that we're looking for. So there is a group exercise, a written exercise, a presentation, and an interview. Fairly straightforward, 4.5 hours, not very stressful, to be honest with you. And then at the end of that, if you've done well enough, you get an offer. So in theory, we can move from initial application to offer in less than a month if we do have the assessment centers lined up. That was very short and sweet, but I think it covered, I'm hoping it covered what you wanted to hear, but I'll stop sharing now and see if I can see any questions. Thank you, Alexander, for attending. I'm glad you found it interesting. So then there's a question here about what would you say are the main traits of a successful candidate for BDO? Very good question. The main things that we look for are a digital mindset. So that's an openness to change when it comes to technology. You have to have grit, so be resilient. You have to be able to deal with difficult situations, and you have to be able to learn from your mistakes, both in terms of listening to feedback and taking that on board, as well as actively looking at what you're doing and how you can do that better. A lot of those things are things that will allow you to be successful in most careers, but it's very important to us, as well as your ability to work in a team and collaborate with others. Then there's a question around technical training and how that's being completed. Is it similar to online training and tutorials? I'm not sure. Dan, do you know what kind of, how you deliver technical training? I can't hear you, Dan.
Sorry, mixture of online courses and classroom tutorials done virtually at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So the assessment centres this year, it's run on Microsoft Teams. As Dan said, we do use Microsoft tools a lot. And the process for the group for the assessment centre is, yes, group exercise, and then you have the 3 individual exercises as well. So written task, presentation, interview. Not necessarily in that order though. You always do the group exercise first, but then which of the 3 others you do after that depends, but you do all 3. In order to secure a full-time role, is it necessary to go through a summer internship first? No, it's not. If you do go through the summer internship and you apply when you're in your penultimate year of university, your chances of securing a full-time role after that are good. So if you are in your penultimate year, I would highly recommend doing the summer internship, but the majority of recruits that we take on come directly, so they have not done an internship with us. Are the assessment centres for graduate roles opening soon? They are open. Applications have been open for a while, and we have been running assessment centres. If you're asking for when to apply, I would say to do that ASAP. The sooner the better. How much relevant experience do you require from a student applying for a full-time role, and do we need previous work experience? I'm going to answer both of those in one. We look for potential, we don't look for experience. So if you have prior work experience and you can use that, especially in the interview, to show why you would like to pursue a career in accounting, audit, tax, advisory, etc., then that's great. A lot of candidates who have prior work experience utilize that for to showcase their motivation, and that's really important. However, because we don't screen CVs, we don't leave anyone out just because they don't have work experience. So a lot of our graduates join us without having a lot of work experience or a lot of relevant work experience. So you don't need it. It's nice to have, but it's not a must have. A virtual assessment centre, are there any additional criteria applicants should consider? We assess for the same thing as we would in a physical assessment centre. However, there are probably a couple of things you want to ensure. Because you're using Teams, being comfortable with that is good. So try and spend some time getting to grips with Teams if you haven't already used it. Make sure your Wi-Fi is okay as well. We won't necessarily mark you down if your Wi-Fi goes halfway through the group exercise. However, it can throw you off a little bit, so make sure you are sitting somewhere where you have good connection. Internships are only for penultimate year students. However, you can come on to an insight event. So we run insight events about once a month. We had our first one a couple of days ago, and they're a great way to get a better understanding of the different roles that we have available, and it also allows you to speak to some of our trainees. So if you're in your first year, if you're thinking of and considering a career with BDO, I would highly recommend doing that. What kind of responsibility are graduates given? Do they deal directly with clients from day one? It depends on the team, how quickly you get in front of a client, but generally you join us, you have induction, you go to college and you start your qualifications for the sort of first week or two, and then you get stuck in. Our graduates are they are dealing with clients very early on. For example, in audit, they are client sites very quickly. because we need to induct you and sort of train you on the basics first. It's not from day one necessarily, but it does happen very quickly. How competitive is it? I'm guessing that has to do with sort of number of candidates to number of places, and also could we get some insights about the success rate / intake for the Graduate Assessment Centre? Again, I'm assuming that's a similar question. We get a lot of applications every year. We do recruit a lot of people. However, we obviously get more applications than we have roles. However, I would never look at that when considering whether to apply for a role or not. I always say apply for the job that you think suits you. If you get it, then that's great. If not, then you've tried. A graduate scheme is 3 years. So if you apply for something just because you think you can get it, odds are you won't, because your motivation will show through in the interview. However, if you do, you will end up having a job that you don't enjoy for 3 years. So it's better to apply for what you really want to do rather than settling for something just because you think it's easier to get it. What kind of criteria are candidates scored against at the assessment centre? Does this differ from the online assessment? Yes, we look at slightly different strengths in the assessment centre, but if and when you make it through to the assessment centre, the resourcing advisor, for example, me, if you apply to the offices that I look after, will give you a call and let you know what we're looking for at each stage. However, it's no surprise if I say in the group exercise we're looking for collaboration skills, etc. Would you have less chances of getting an offer if you apply later? The short answer to that is yes. Because we fill first come first serve, it means that there are less places now, and we have started offering. So the sooner you apply, the better. I'm just looking at the Q&A. Advice for virtual assessments. Be yourself. That's very important. And just be confident in your own abilities. I'm seeing a question here about getting in touch. Will someone get in touch with the candidates about assessment centre self-scheduling? If you have applied and you're waiting for an assessment centre and you haven't heard back, just know that we are working and getting back to you as soon as possible. If you do have any questions, I would recommend getting in touch with the team. There's a question here around how much support is given. I'm not sure what kind of support you mean. If you could clarify that, that would be great. Any other questions? Anything I could help you with? Does this mean that the assessment centres are more competitive now that it's at a later stage? It depends. Some teams have quite a few places left, but as I said earlier, the earlier you apply, the better. No problem at all. Happy to help. That looks like that was it. Oh, a question here. Would you recommend preparing for the online assessments as I would for an interview? Yes, have a good understanding yourself of why you're applying for BDO and the team you're applying to. I think we're out of time now. Is that right, Kitty?
Yeah, we're finishing up now. So thank you so much, Ego. That was amazing. And thank you, Dan, as well, for that amazing webinar. If they didn't manage to answer your questions this time, you can email me. My email is attached to the registration. So that's Kitty, Kitty, at rmpenterprise.co.uk. So forward any questions to me that the lovely team didn't manage to answer, and we'll get back to you. Thank you again, everyone. It was great to hear about all of the exciting goings on at BDO.